The Jeff Younger Show is on. Dedicated to my sons, James and Jude. You're making the same mistakes that destroyed the most sophisticated rulers in Europe, and you don't even know it. 500 years ago, the Italian princes had everything: wealth, armies, alliances, the best advisors that money could buy, and they lost it all in a single generation. The French invaded, the Spanish invaded, princes who had ruled for decades fled in the night, never to return. Machiavelli watched it happen. And when it was over, he wrote a postmortem. Chapter 24 of The Prince. Quote, "Why Italian princes have lost their states." It's about as direct as it gets. His diagnosis: they got comfortable. They outsourced their defenses. They trusted fortune, which we would call luck or chance. But he means something more than that. He means they trusted to the spirit and assumptions of their age. And when the storms came, they had nothing of their own to fall back on. Some forces are operating against you right now. So I think we can learn something from how the Italian city-states fell. Let's get into it. Because the principles of history and human nature don't change, we can study how things in the past failed and apply them to our current situation. The law that Machiavelli extracted from this terrible event with the Italian city-states is this: men who depend on forces outside of their control will eventually be destroyed by forces outside their control. I'm going to say that again. Men who depend on forces outside of their control will eventually be destroyed by forces outside their control. The guy who spent 20 years at a company, climbed every ladder, and then got laid off at 53 when some executive decided his department was redundant. He lost his retirement. He lost all of his savings. He had nothing of his own. His skills belonged to the company. His network existed inside the company. And now he's competing with 25-year-olds for jobs that pay half what he made. Okay, that's an Italian prince watching French cavalry pour through his gates, basically. Okay? Again, he relied on things outside of his control, and this man who lost his retirement was done in by forces outside of his control. Think of the entrepreneur who built his entire business on one platform and then wakes up to find that his account has been suspended and this platform has canceled him. No warning, no appeal. So now years of work and all of his customers are just gone tomorrow. What happened? He relied on things outside of his control, and he was done in by things outside of his control. That's an Italian prince who hired mercenaries instead of training his own troops. If you want to know why Elon Musk vertically integrates his company so that all aspects of the supply chain are inside of Musk's direct control, he owns the steps of the supply chain, now you understand. Less is outside of his control, and therefore less can do him in outside of his control. Let's focus on the Italian princes, though. What specifically did they do wrong? It was 3 failures. And we're going to extract lessons about how those 3 failures are operating on you right now. First, they relied on mercenaries instead of their own arms. The Italian princes thought that they were clever. Why train your own people when you can just write a check to a professional army? But mercenaries fight for money, not loyalty. And when the real test comes and it looks like the tide could turn, they buckle and run away. All right? Your employer is a mercenary. They're loyal to the quarterly report. They are not loyal to you. Your employer doesn't give a shit about you. Right? When keeping conflicts with the spreadsheet, you're gone. If it's you and the numbers on the spreadsheet, who are they going to choose? They're going to always choose the numbers on the spreadsheet. All right? Your platform is a mercenary. YouTube, Amazon, LinkedIn. You're just a line item to these people. Man, they don't care if your message gets out. They don't care who you are or what good you're doing. If their algorithm changes, you're just collateral damage, man. Your credentials are mercenaries. That degree that you got, that certification, dude, they work for whoever's paying. When the market decides they're worthless, They're not going to fight for you. I watched a video once where a grown man literally got on his knees and begged people to subscribe. Hands clasped, boys cracking. I think there was a sound effect like a whoopee cushion or some shit. That's what the algorithm rewards: performance. Bullshit performance. Desperation theater. Well, I'm not fucking doing that. Here's the situation. I make videos. YouTube buries them unless you subscribe. That's the game. I didn't design it, but I understand it. You want more of this? Subscribe. Hit the bell. You don't? Fine. Go find one of the guys who will beg for it. There's plenty of those assholes on YouTube. But if you're here because you're tired of being sold to, tired of being manipulated and performed for, then you already know what to do, man. Just 2 clicks. Subscribe, bell. No theatrics, man. Do it. Let me summarize Machiavelli here. Quote, the only good defenses are those that depend on yourself and your own virtue. The only good defenses are those that depend on yourself and your own virtue. Everything else is just borrowed strength, and it'll run out on you in the critical moment. Okay? The second mistake the Italian princes made, is that they thought fortune would never change, that the world would just be the way it was in the past. They had inherited their positions or acquired them during peace. They'd really never been tested, so they assumed that good times would continue. Again, quoting Machiavelli, quote, our princes who had been established in their principalities for many years and then lost them should not blame fortune, but rather their own indolence. Indolence, which means laziness. The failure to use peacetime as training time. The man who's been in the same job for years is not learning anything new. The man who's healthy now, he doesn't exercise. Whoever is employed now, he doesn't really save his money. Who's married now, he doesn't invest in the relationship. But fortune, if it guarantees anything, it guarantees change. Machiavelli said fortune is like a woman. And one thing we know about fickle women is they change all the time and for no good reason. So the only question is whether you're going to be ready when Lady Fortune changes her mind. The third mistake the princes made is that when trouble came, they were too eager to flee than to stand their ground. Okay? If you don't have your own troops and you haven't prepared for the crisis, what can you do really? You have to run, right? A prince who flees admits 3 things. He doesn't have loyal troops of his own. He doesn't have the love of his people, and he doesn't have the personal courage to stake his life on his position. You've personally seen this. The founder who sells out when things get hard. The manager who throws his team under the bus. The man who abandons his family when marriage gets difficult. The woman who runs out on the family when she thinks she can do better and takes the kids. Okay? These are common situations, right? You've seen this. Practically speaking, what would it look like to think about avoiding this? There's just basically 3 principles that correlate with the 3 mistakes. You got to build your own arms, man. And it has to be in your control. What can you do that's valuable regardless of who's paying you? What do you know that cannot be taken away? What relationships exist outside of any single organization to control it? We need skills that belong to you. You need a network that's outside of your company that you control. You need investments that don't depend on your next paycheck, okay? You need a reputation that follows you wherever you go, regardless of where you are. And a reputation inside of a company, a reputation just in right-wing circles, a reputation just on YouTube, that's not going to work, man. It's vulnerable. The second principle is study war and peacetime. Machiavelli tells of a prince who, even during peace, would ride through the countryside imagining how he'd defend each position. He trained his mind for crises before they arrived. Read histories of how other men navigated disasters. Ask, what would I do if this happened to me? When the flood comes, you're not going to have time to think, but you'll have the pattern recognition. And the third principle is you should never trust fortune. Remember, fortune is a woman. Men prosper when their methods match the times and fail when the times change and their methods don't change. The man who can only succeed in one environment is hostage to that environment. You should be prepared for multiple scenarios. This is what I mean when I say a plan with branches. Your plan has to account for different outcomes and different environments in the future, okay? You can't just have a linear plan, right? You have to have contingencies. Well, what if this happens? What if I lose my job? What if there's a recession in the middle of this project and they cut this project? What am I going to do? You have to have a plan with branches. Options are power. Let me say that again. Options are power. Think ahead and always have contingency plans. Never trust to fortune. Bring all of this within your own control. Look, the bottom line is this. Every easy time is training time. And training time is not easy. Every easy time is training time. And training time is not easy. The Italian princes spent peacetime and pleasure in politics. They didn't spend it building armies, developing their own strength. When Charles VIII of Europe crossed the Alps in 1494, all of their sophistication meant jack shit against a real army led by a real king who wanted to kill them and take what they had. So 500 years later, men are still making the same damn mistakes. It's a consequence of human nature. It's not a consequence of history. Men have this tendency to be indolent in good times. They tend to trust employers, and employers have developed systems that are very clever at giving you the impression that you can trust them. They don't give a shit about you, man. You have a business relationship with those people. Building on platforms that you can't control, very dangerous. Assuming good times will come because good times were in the past, that's fool's errand, man. You need options. The storm is coming. You need options. Okay? Build those options now, because when the storm comes, it's not going to wait for you. Now get off YouTube, think about your options and contingency plans, and build something that will last in adversity. Do the work. The Jeff Younger Show, signing off.